it feels to me that you have created such a sacred space here, intentionally. With your presence and what you've seeded you is great delight. So I'm feeling great joy today. So let's see what we're working on.
There's no time limit.
All right. So today I would like to speak about from knowing to being, from knowledge to wisdom, how we step through the portal carrying that which we already have, but how do we hone it and how do we utilize it? So there's an old Zen story about a student who travels very far to see her teacher. She's read every text, she's studied every commentary, she's totally available to this experience, and she's bursting with all of this information. And she arrives, and the teacher invites her in and has her sit down, and she starts to pour some tea. The teacher's pouring tea for the student, and she's watching her student, and she's pouring, and the cup starts to overflow. It hits the table, now it's flowing down to the floor, and the student's becoming alarmed. Shall I give some information to the teacher about what's happening here? And so she says, teacher, the cup is full, no more will go in. And the teacher sets down the teapot very quietly, and she says, yes. Like this cup, you are full of your opinions and your speculations. How can I show you wisdom unless you first empty your cup? So we're here today to see how do we empty from our old presuppositions, from our old patterns, and step into the wisdom which you already are. So we're going to start here with the image of the cup full, because we are each full. This isn't about acquiring something new. This is about bringing forth that which is already here. So how do we allow what we already know to become something that we actually live? How do we move from the knowing of it to the living of it? This is the difference between the map and the territory it describes. But if we're out on the territory, how does that look? How do we experience that? How do we navigate the territory? We live in an unprecedented time of knowledge. We can, in the morning, go through the Upanishads, the Bible, the Quran, whatever. We can absorb so much information that's available to us in the morning, when a medieval monk would take a lifetime to acquire, if even available, that information. So the question is not, is there information for us to find access to? No, we know that. And what we also know is that by all measures, even though we have this great access, we're not experiencing more freedom, more peace, more liberation. Those still seem to be the places we're looking for more illumination. So in spite of the fact that we have access, it has not actually led us to liberation. And if our aim is to be here and to become free, then we have to learn how to move and navigate a little differently. So something's missing. And what's missing is in this gap between wisdom and knowledge. There's a gap. So we have the knowledge, but there's a place in between that we have yet to understand. So knowledge is information that's understood. We can test it. It's often scientifically backed. It's written up in many, different writings, and we can find truth in knowledge, and we know how to access that. It can tell us many things. It can tell us that anger arises from unmet needs. It can tell us that impermanence is the nature of all things. And it can tell us that love is the deepest force that we have in the universe. Knowledge can be brilliant. Knowledge can be accurate and life-changing in theory. In Sanskrit, tradition distinguishes several different types of knowing. Paroksha jnana means indirect knowledge. It means knowledge about something that's received through words and concepts. And aparokha jnana is direct knowledge, something we have learned through first person. We've had the experience of it. So we know it to be truth in our body, not simply through what we have read or we have been taught through our mind. The Vedantic tradition is clear that paroksha jnana can prepare the ground for something, but it is not in and of itself liberation. Aparoksha jnana is the liberation because it is our firsthand experience. In Western philosophy, Aristotle distinguished theoretical knowledge from what is practical wisdom. So he separated these ideas. The ability to discern right action in a particular lived situation. So you can have perfect understanding of theoretical knowledge and yet make a terrible decision with the moment of anger or grief or some other emotion that's arisen. Practical wisdom is that which guides our hands to something that the mind has known as a theory. So there's a theory, but we want to bring it down, the theory down into our heart, so that it then comes out into the world through our hands. So much of what we do in our healing is through our hands. Wisdom is hard to define precisely, and that difficulty is the clue that we know it's wisdom. It's not as simple. It's very nice when we have a scientific overview of something and we can read the study and we can say, yes, I know this to be true. I can hold this and I don't have to have any struggle with it. Wisdom gives us more of a struggle. Is what I'm bringing forth wisdom? Has it been tainted by something else in me? Is it simply the internal expression? What is this wisdom? But it's knowledge that has been lived. We all know that when we've been broken open, suffering, joy is integrated into the body, the character, and the way that we see the world. This kind of wisdom that comes from the cracking open is very different. Wisdom is knowing that impermanence is real, not because loved and lost and in you softened rather than hardened. Wisdom is knowing that the deepest force of love is because you have been loved back into life. Our bells knew what love was. In the Jewish tradition, there's a beautiful concept. It's called hukmah, which is often translated as wisdom, but a closer I just love that. The first flash of insight, the intuitive knowing before analysis. So something that comes into the cells of our body, we know it before our mind starts to be discursive with it and go, maybe not. Maybe it's something else. In there is bina. This is the understanding, the digestion, and the application of that knowing. So it isn't simply a piece of information we're given. We need to ourselves through personal experience or through another test within us so that we can digest it and then we can reuse it. Wisdom in this tradition, the Jewish tradition, is not static possession, but it's a living, dynamic interaction. It's a relationship between receiving, understanding, and applying. Receiving, understanding, and applying. It goes through a test. Our wisdom goes through a test. We test it. When we give someone wise counsel, it is not because it's something that we read. It's something that we know in the fiber of our being because we've experienced it, and we can share it in a way that the truth is very evident. This is the wisdom we're looking for. Miles Kingdom said, knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad. The joke is a perfect pointer. Wisdom is not cleverness. It is not knowing more facts. It is knowing what to do with what you know. And in this moment, in this body, in this person, in this situation, so I know my wisdom is applicable based on the situation. Someone needs something that I can offer in this moment is very different than what might be needed in another moment. So that wisdom comes from me understanding how to apply and when it's appropriate to bring something forth. Wisdom is inherently relational and situated. It cannot be wise in the abstract. We can't be wise in the abstract. The gap between knowledge and wisdom is the place where most spiritual aspirations go awry or stall. We know we should be patient, and yet we snap at our loved ones. We know that we're all sacred beings, and yet we dehumanize the person who cuts us off in traffic or who somehow moves in front of us in a way that's not pleasurable for us. We know that the present moment is actually the only place we can be, and yet we spend the day rehearsing for tomorrow's anxiety. This is not hypocrisy, it's the human condition. And every wisdom tradition we have inherited has been at its core a sustained attempt to answer one question: how do we close this gap between knowing and being? So let's travel across a few traditions and see where they've given us wisdom. For one who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. For one who has failed to do so, the mind remains the greatest enemy, from the Bhagavad Gita. The Gita rests on this entirely on this tension between knowing what we should do and being able to do it. How we can act from an understanding that is a heightened level than what we know, we think we know. Wisdom is not knowing. Wisdom comes from a different place. It has a different quality. There's a great Tamil poet sage whose name is Thiruvalluvar. I have spent many years in India, and I've decided to make a book of all the names and words that have 12 letters or more. I'm like, why? Why do we have to have these 18 syllables in this one word or one name? Anyway, he had a wonderful saying: a person who has learned much but has not practiced is like a farmer who has cleared the field but never sowed any seeds. Never sowed any seeds. He says learning without application is not an achievement, it's wasted ground. The land was cleared, the effort was made, but without the seed of practice, nothing grows. To know others is wisdom. To know oneself is enlightenment. To master others is strength. To master oneself is true power. From the Tao Te Ching. Lao Tzu draws the critical distinction here. Knowing others, understanding the word, understanding the Tao and its principles is wisdom. But knowing oneself, the direct, clear seeing of one's own nature without the filters of self-deception is something beyond wisdom. It's enlightenment. The inward turn is not just a different kind of knowledge. It is a different kind of knowing altogether. The Taoist version and practice of Wao Wei, effortless wisdom and action, is what wisdom looks like when it's integrated into us, this effortlessness. We're not struggling to come up with something. It comes through us in this beautiful organic way that we can then birth into the space that we're in. A wise person does not labor to know and apply what she knows. The knowing and the doing have become one. The gap has been closed. Not through force or through willpower, but through slow, patient dissolution of the separation between knowing and being. The Buddha has said or purported to have said, do not believe in anything simply because you have heard it. Do not believe in traditions because they have been handed down for many generations. But after personal observation and analysis, when you find that anything agrees with reason and is conducive to good and to benefit all, then accept it and live up to it. The Buddha is not asking us to be incredulous. He's asking us to do something far more demanding, to test the teaching in direct experience. This is the difference between faith and doctrine and cultivation of prajna, wisdom, which is in Buddhism, is the belief held that is one must step into internal insight through the external world. Both are applying to us. We're using both. We're using the life that we have stepped into, that has been given to us, to allow us to merge our experience with the knowledge that we have and then birth our wisdom. We can use both. The Buddha points to something that every tradition affirms. Wisdom is not accumulated in isolation and then expressed outward. The very act of expressing it, of living in service, exactly what's happening in this room today, is itself the deepening of it. Wisdom grows in the giving. It's not isolated. So we have knowledge, and we have our internal mechanism for handling that knowledge, and then we have our experiences. And when we merge those and we then give them back out into the world, then the wisdom deepens and grows. Then our experience of it becomes something else. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about ideas. Language ideas, even the phrase each other, don't make any sense. Beautiful from Rumi is pointing to the place beyond knowledge, the field that no concept can grasp. But he didn't say abandon ideas. He says out beyond them. Don't give up and say, I don't have any thought, my thoughts aren't useful. Or it's how do we go beyond that? How do we ask of ourselves to step one step farther, deeper into this experience of being human? How do we do that? The concepts are the path, not the destination. The destination is the territory. The concepts are the map. We have the map. We all have the map. Many maps, beautiful maps. That's not the destination. Today I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I'm changing myself. Also Rumi. This is Rumi's most direct teaching on this subject. Cleverness, knowledge, look outward. They see what needs fixing in the world. Wisdom first looks inward. First looks inward, not because the world doesn't need fixing, but because the one who is changing and looking at fixing it must first genuinely be grounded in their own transformation. So we have to transform first so that we can use this wisdom. The peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds, Philippians 4:7. Paul is pointing to something that surpasses understanding, that exceeds the capacity for knowledge to contain. The peace he is describing cannot be thought into existence. It is received, not constructed. It's received from the world. It comes from when the intellect has stilled. We talk about this all the time, enough that something can move deeper. We have to still things so that the possibility, so that the open script that's inside of us has room for something new to be written. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father. Matthew 7:21. Jesus is blunt. Knowing the right words, even sacred words, even the right name, is not enough. The kingdom is not entered by correct theology. It is entered by action, by the life actually lived in alignment with that which is known. It's not enough to repeat sections of whatever your book of truth is. How are you living your life into that? How are you allowing life to impact you so that you can bring all the pieces together? The highest form of wisdom is kindness. In the Talmudic tradition, for all its extraordinary richness of learning debate, it never loses sight of the measure of wisdom is not how much you know or how brilliantly you can debate and argue. It is how do you treat the person in front of you. Chesed, loving kindness, is not the fruit of wisdom, it's wisdom itself, made flesh. How do we make wisdom flesh? It's not another piece of information. It's something wholly different. Hilo said, in a place where there are no worthy persons, strive to be a worthy person. His teaching is quietly radical. Do not wait for better circumstances. Do not wait for better company or a more supportive environment. Wisdom is not contingent on external circumstances. It is a choice made again and again to be what you know you must be, regardless of that which surrounds you. We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children, a beautiful Native American proverb. Many indigenous traditions do not separate knowledge and wisdom from responsibility. So if I know something, then I must use that to move forward. I don't have to wait until I think it's wisdom. I have to be responsible with all that I have learned. Knowledge that does not generate care and right action is considered a kind of spiritual poverty. Spiritual poverty, not a wealth. And in a beautiful Lakota saying, really the crux of all of this, the longest journey you will make is from your head to your heart, right? And there it is, put with breathtaking simplicity, the longest journey from the head to the heart. This is the journey we're exploring today. This is the gap that we're trying to close. Seems like it should be pretty simple. It's just going from here to here. How difficult can that be? Yeah. Like nearly impossible, right? Nearly impossible. And here is the twist to our journey. Spiritual knowledge, beautiful, true, hard won, spiritual knowledge can be in and of itself a type of obstacle. The person who has read the most, studied the most, can quote the most from their teachers, who can argue a very sophisticated position of non-duality, is not necessarily the wisest person in the room. And often they're not the ones who have the most freedom. In the Zen tradition, they have a phrase for this, the stink of enlightenment. It refers to someone who has a genuine experience or accumulated genuine knowledge, but who wears it, who uses it consciously or unconsciously as I did, above the ordinary human struggle. Not the ordinary human, but the struggle. That doesn't apply to me. I don't worry that way. Oh, that's not a problem. They have placed themselves above the most deep and endearing ways that we can come to our wisdom, which is through our struggle. So to pretend there is no struggle doesn't make you better than others. It actually makes you less than. You don't have the grist for the mill. All of our lives that we've led have given us the grist for this mill. They are, right? They're the pieces we use. We can understand with perfect clarity that the present moment is all there is, and we spend the entire day in our heads. We know that. The understanding floats above lived experience without touching it. And this is not a fault of a teaching. This is the gap that the teaching is pointing to. Understanding the impermanence conceptually is not the same as holding it in your body when something you treasure deeply and you know you will no longer be able to hold it. That impermanence, that's when impermanence comes home. Not in my mind when I know, yes, I know I'm impermanent, this is impermanent. No, when I hold it in my hands and I love something, an idea, a being, an experience so deeply, and I know it's going to leave. There's no keeping it, there's no holding it. Then that impermanence starts to touch in my heart. It brings this down from my mind into my heart. The accumulation of spiritual knowledge can quietly feed the ego. We all know that. We can say, I understand the Upanishads, I meditate, I've been doing it for 20 years, I do all these things, and yet I'm still struggling to understand how I'm bringing things down into my heart. So what's the use of it? What's the use of all this information that I keep accumulating? Genuine wisdom in virtually every tradition is forged in difficulty. We know this. It's not that suffering is required for wisdom. It's not a required piece. It's just that the integration of difficulty, honesty, faced, tends to bring up in us a quality that no amount of reading can replicate. It has a nuance to it that gets under the skin in a different way. This is the reason that virtually every wisdom figure in every tradition has gone through a descent, the dark night of the soul, a failure, a loss, a humbling. The descent is not incidental to the wisdom. It is the crucible. It is not incidental. It is required in some ways, and for some of us it's not. Every tradition is unanimous here. The diligent practice and a discipline of awareness is what's required. The Sufis do a foundational spiritual practice of rhythmically repeating the names of God in sacred places. Really beautiful. The Buddhists sit, the Christians pray, the yogi practices, the Hasid must daven, which is an obligatory prayer that is said in Hasidic Orthodox Jewish life. The form varies, but the necessity does not. We cannot think our way into wisdom. We have to walk there, one step at a time, one day at a time. So how do we do that? How do we close the gap between what we know and who we are? So let's look at a framework that I think is quite helpful. It's based on the Lectio Divina, which many of you probably know. It's a slightly different version, which I really like. I'm calling it the 3 movements of the day. This is a practice. I have to have a practice, another practice, a little micro practice. So it takes perhaps 20 minutes in total, but it's all you spread it out over the day. And with consistent, intentional devotion to it, it will help us move from our head into our heart. And it's really fun on top of that. So the morning is the most receptive time for us. A fresh mind, the day has not begun. We have an empty tableau. So we use that for receiving. So our morning is our receiving time, not our producing time in this practice. This is the time for knowledge to enter quietly. So sit in silence for about 2 minutes and just sit. We don't launch into anything. We don't have an agenda. We just sit and enjoy the peacefulness of the space that we're in. And then, after we have allowed for this to sit with us, we slowly read one passage from a sacred text or a teaching that we like. Just one passage. Not for the information, not to complete a chapter, not as another to-do, just something that we would like to invite in that moment, and read it twice, and then sit with it. And we ask ourselves this one question: what in my life does this touch today? We don't yet know, but we're asking ourselves that question. What in my life does this touch today? This is the practice the Desert Fathers used: sacred reading. Not studying, not analysis, reading and letting the words just fall over our body, over our heart, just to come into our knowingness without an analysis. The Sufis called it a different shobet, which is a very similar practice. It was a sacred conversation with the teaching. I'm having a sacred I'm asking a question, and I'm seeing how the teaching comes back to me. But I'm setting it up for the day. I don't yet know how this is going to unfold, because I don't yet know how my day is going to actually divinely come into being. The difference from ordinary reading is the quality of attention. It's receptive, slow, personal. I'm inviting this in to me to sit with my interiority, without judgment, without answering this question. I'm just seeding it. And then midday is our applying. So we've been receptive. Now we're going to take a look at how that's working. So sometime in the middle of your day, at lunch or before a meeting, or maybe you've been in your car and you can just sit parked for a few minutes, pause for 2 to 5 minutes and ask a single question. What did I read this morning, and where has it touched my day so far? Now we're connecting what it is that we read to what's actually happening in our life. It's no longer theoretical. Now it's actually happening. It's practical. This is the hinge. This is where knowledge begins to become wisdom. So we're taking a journey from our knowledge into our wisdom. The teaching you held in the morning brought you into contact with the actual texture of your lived hours. So now I'm relating things together. I'm knitting things together so that there aren't separate streams inside of me. So we ask ourselves, did the teaching about patience, I happen to have read something about patience, did it speak to the conversation that I had at 10 in the morning? Was I patient? I just get to explore. No judgment, no attitude, just, I really like that teaching on patience, was I able, how did it work into my actual living out of it? Not judging, watching. We're in deep self-awareness of how we are moving through our day and how that relates to the wisdom that we've been given and the knowledge that we've received from that which we have read. So it's not time for self-criticism or punishment. It's to be honest and compassionate with ourselves. If we don't learn to step into self-awareness, we won't ever see this juncture. It'll just come and go. We'll read the passage, check, I did that this morning. I read that nice, it was very lovely, and I'm very happy for it. And now I go about my day, and there's no application of that which I read. So I can read every single day, and my life can look exactly the same. If I want my life to start transforming, I have to find ways to bring in that wisdom and knowledge into what's being lived out. So the midday pause is the practice of finding a space where you can see that's the gap, and am I narrowing it? How am I narrowing that? 2 minutes in the middle of the day consistently over days and years, this is how reactive life becomes responsive life. I stop being reactive, I start being responsive because I'm holding a quality that I'm now understanding how it actually works out in the day-to-day. And the third part of this is the evening integration. So the evening practice is for integrating, for allowing the day's experiences to be held, witnessed, and offered. So there are 3 simple questions that you ask yourself in the evening. What arose in me today that I am glad about? What arose in me today? What spontaneously, what genuine place of patience or compassion or a choice that I made from a deeper place inside of myself by just responding? And I know I'm noticing it. How lovely. I'm really happy. That happened. That came out of me spontaneously. I'm pleased with that. What arose in me that I'm glad about? Maybe nothing. Maybe it was a tough day. Maybe nothing. But maybe some things. Maybe. The second question is, what arose in me today that I want to understand better? So now we start to dissect without any sort of judgment. We start to say, was I unkind in a moment or impatient with someone, or was I afraid? How did I respond during my day? Just what came up in me? What came up in me, and what's underneath of that? What can I understand better about myself? If I'm trying to be in my own wisdom from the knowledge and I'm intersecting with my life, I need to explore my life. So what came up? And can I see what's under it or not? Just to ask the question. This is the question specifically about grace, about the sunlight, about, how am I allowing something lighter to come in to my life? And where am I noticing it? What arose in me today that I want to understand better? And the last thing is, what am I grateful for today that I did not earn? What am I grateful for that I did not earn? Right? I mean, it's all around us. And of course, you all, I can bet if we took a raise of hands that 90, maybe every one of you here is doing a gratitude practice. So you already go through it. But this is giving it new life. It's not a list of all the things in my life. It's what today, where I was in my life, in my experience of what happened in my life today, what was evident and apparent and visible today. And bring it into now. Yes, I'm thankful for my family. Yes, I'm thankful for all. I have a list, a long list. But today, I'm thankful that we get to be here today. What is it about today? Because we want to keep bringing us back to the present moment in the experience we're having now that we can then use to help us bridge this gap. Because if we don't stay in the present moment, we can't get in the gap. It's not possible because we're somewhere else. So we have to use practices like this. One of the beautiful things that happened today that I didn't earn is that my heart kept beating for the day. It didn't get asked to do so, it just did so, right? Gratitude of these qualities unearned are the most powerful wisdom practices that we have. And we finished that with Ralph Waldo Emerson said, finish each day and be done with it. You have done what you could. So now we put to bed, literally and figuratively, we're finishing our day. And it's important to let it go. Maybe we brought up something, I wish I had been more patient, or I could have opened the door. How many times have we had an experience where we saw somebody needed something and we wanted to help, but we were having to go and we got pulled, and then later we went, oh, I should have just stepped over and said something or offered something. And we get to examine that, but we don't have to hold it on, because tomorrow will bring more opportunities. Tomorrow we'll have another chance, but tomorrow we will be in self-awareness, and we will know immediately, I'm not passing up this opportunity. It won't pass us up. We let things go. The nation XMN from which this practice draws, from which this holy practice draws, always ends with a forward look to tomorrow held lightly. Held lightly. One intention, one offering, not a to-do list, a single quality you want to bring forth. And you go to sleep with that. Notice what this practice actually does. It is the receiving, the applying, and the integrating. So the wisdom that we're looking for needs to have a practice, because we're getting a lot of incoming information. We have to figure out how to receive it and apply it to our lives. And then we get to integrate it and take a look and smile within ourselves, or say, tomorrow I'll do it a little differently. During our day, we get to test this out. Is it working? Because it's going to happen all around us in so many different ways. We get to say, is there a movement from my head to my heart through my hands? Is this movement happening? I get to see this and witness it. You will be so joyfully happy to notice that you do it all the time. These are natural movements for us. And yet we're so self-critical, and we move on so quickly, and there's so many thoughts coming into our mind that we often just don't acknowledge all of it. We take the time to acknowledge what's really happening and how much we are already following this descent from the head to the heart. The structure that every tradition uses in its own form is different. It might be a morning prayer, a midday examination of conscience. It might be the evening compline, the Sufi morning verses and supplications. It might be the morning sitting, the mindful day, evening dedication of merit. It has a lot of different names. Knowledge enters, life tests it, wisdom slowly forms. It all has the same outcome. Knowledge enters, life tests it, wisdom slowly forms. There's a natural movement. So I want to go back to where we began, the Zen story with the overflowing teacup. The Lakota teaching that the longest journey is from the head to the heart. We are all in this room people who love learning. All of us. We love teachings. We find beauty and nourishment in great texts and in great teachers. That love is real, and that's not the problem. The problem, if there is a problem, is only that we continue to mistake the love of the map for the willingness to walk the territory. That's the only problem. This we can fix. The territory is our actual life. No text is going to take us to that place. It brings us to the door, and then it leaves us. It doesn't bring us. The door comes down. It doesn't take us through the portal. Traditions that we have visited today, the Vedanta, the Taoists, the Sufis, the Buddhists, the Christianity, the indigenous voices, they disagree on almost everything except transformation is possible. Transformation is possible. The gap can close. We want that. The head and the heart can, eventually, through practice and grace, speak the same language. Not perfectly, not all at once, but genuinely, incrementally, in the experience of our beingness, they can speak. And we can move, we can learn how to take that descent as a practice. I bring it in, I bring it down, I use it in my heart, and I offer it back into the world. It's a cycle. It replenishes itself. We're a piece of that cycle. We don't step outside of it. We're not above it. We're not on the side of it. We're in it. This is the movement. So we can be a good teacher to one another, which is what you do in your community here. Touching the seeds, encouraging the seed to wake up, to sprout, and to grow. That's what we're doing. My hope is that something that you take away from this will remind you of the seed that's planted in yourself and others, and that you will take the time to nourish that and to take care of whatever's needed so that all of us can experience this descent, because our lives will be available for that. Our lives will be available. And that's enough, right? That's enough. So let's see. It's time. Yes? I have a little tiny practice. Do you want that?
Yes.
Okay. This is a little meditation, very short. So close your eyes. It's a reflection more. Take one slow breath in and slowly release it fully. And I want you to bring to mind one teaching, one sentence, one idea, one truth, just one, that has lived in your head for a long time. Something you know to be true, but have not yet fully become. So grasp onto that one teaching, one sentence. So hold it gently. Don't analyze. Just let this one teaching rest in your awareness like a stone in a warm hand. And now ask yourself quietly, what would my day look like tomorrow if I lived this? Not perfectly, not completely, just a little more than yesterday. And stay with whatever arises. You don't need to solve or commit to anything. Just let the question breathe. What would my day look like tomorrow if I lived this? And slowly, when you're ready, bring your awareness and this new piece of wisdom back into the room. And know that you can practice this anytime. Thank you for your time, for your beauty, for your community, for your willingness and openness of heart. I suspect, given this community, that the distance between the head and the heart is rather short.